Once again, we embark on an adventure into the world of anime. What will it bring us today? Something fun, something torturous, or, the worst of all, something boring? Only one way to find out. This is Cellupunk and Anime Exposure, the show where someone who doesn't know anything about anime, that'll be me, reviews 3 semi-randomly picked anime. And this time, get ready. You're not ready, really get ready, this is some exciting stuff. This time, the buttons that we used to pick a random anime got an update. Now they look a little different. They look a little better. That's it. Exciting, right? And if you're wondering if anything else changed about them, the answer is no. They just look a little different because I used different AI to remake them. I still don't know shit about coding, so that didn't change since the beginning of the show. It's kind of fascinating that instead of focusing my attention on stuff that I'm passionate about, I started a YouTube show based on and powered by things I don't know nothing about. Maybe I should reevaluate some of my life choices. But I don't have time for that. I have 3 random anime to review, so let's start the fucking show.
Be careful what you wish for. Punk, 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 punk.
Our first pick today is Natsume's Book of Friends, based on a manga created by Yuki Midorikawa. Second episode in a row we end up with the shoujo anime. It's an anime that aimed at teenage girls. So this is the second shoujo anime that I have ever watched, and the first one I didn't really like. Therefore, Natsume's Book of Friends had a lot of heavy lifting to do. It had to be not only a good show that I enjoy, but also redeem the entire genre and restore the good name of anime chick flicks. And spoiler alert, it did that. I actually really enjoyed the show, it was really good. Natsume's Book of Friends is a story about a high school student, Takashi Natsume. Takashi has a gift, he can see and talk with spirits, yokais, and as a result of it, he was poorly treated by other kids and even adults. They all always consider him at least weird or even creepy. In addition to that, as a young kid, he lost his parents, so for most of his life he was shipped from place to place, living with different distant relatives. Show picks up soon after he arrives in this small rural town to live with his aunt and uncle on father's side. But this is not really a random place for him. This ability that he possesses runs in his family on mother's side. And the last person to have it before him was his grandmother, that also spent some formative moments of her life in the same town. It turns out that she, and because of their last name Natsume, are pretty infamous among spirits in this area, because she sorta terrorized them. In this world, if you know the name of the spirit, you possess the power to control them. So Takashi's grandmother made a collection of different names of spirits and put them all in the same book, called her Book of Friends. And now Takashi, as her only heir, has that book, and all the spirits and demons around try to hunt him to get it for themselves. That's exactly where the first episode starts. Takashi running away from spirits that chase him through the woods, and while doing that by accident he stumbles and frees this powerful entity that most time presents itself as a cat and sometimes as to me it looks like a wolf or a fox, but according to Wikipedia it's supposed to be a dog. So Cat Dog also wants to get the book from Takashi, at first by asking and then by attempting to eat his face. But Takashi's not really scared of him and he has his own plans for this book already. Unlike his grandma, who apparently loved to bully yokais, he actually feels sorry for them. And so, instead of garnering even more power by getting more names, he decides to start giving them back to free all the spirits. Cat Dog is surprised by that and develops respect for Takashi, so they make an arrangement that Cat Dog will protect Takashi from evil spirits while he tries to give all the names back. And when eventually he dies, Cat Dog will get the book with whatever names that are left in it. And that's a setup for the show. Each episode Takashi will meet a new spirit, will try to help him with some problems and return their name. Pretty straightforward procedural, I thought. But then I watched more episodes and started to notice some weird things. You know, there's this consensus in writing that conflict is necessary for compelling storytelling, that you have to have drama and tension for your narratives to be engaging. And in this show, all of the conflicts were set up really well right in the first episode. You have external stuff, spirits that want to take the book, and internal stuff, Takashi being an outsider because of his abilities. So immediately you can imagine the story where Takashi is being bullied in school and not accepted at home, so he kinda have to escape into this world of spirits. It's great, it's sad, it's dramatic, it's tragic, like that works. But then, the more I watched the show, the more I started to notice that all of that conflict setup was for nothing. Because he has no problems in school and immediately finds friends. There's even a girl that is really into him. His new foster parents are amazing. They love him and treat him like he's their own kid. And the spirit's threat is also minimal. Sometimes they attack Takashi, but every action scene ends in seconds, and almost every episode ends with him befriending the antagonist. I'm not overstating it when I'm saying that there is no conflict in this show. And that's not good. Like, there has to be conflict for the story to be good. Like, there's that rule in storytelling and screenwriting that I mentioned before. There has to be conflict, right? Of course not, it's all just a bunch of bullshit that someone made up, so no. Storytelling doesn't have any objective qualities that we can measure, so it cannot be good or bad, and art obviously doesn't really have any rules. So yeah, the show doesn't have any conflict, and it's not a bad thing, because it doesn't have any conflict by design. Because Natsume's Book of Friends is not just a shoujo anime, it's actually a isekai anime. Isekai is a genre in manga and anime that was a reaction in the 90s to a lot of tragic shit that happened in Japan. People were experiencing a lot of trauma and pain, and isekai kind of emerged to help and heal. That's literally what the word means. Healing. Obviously I didn't know anything about that before I started doing research for this video, but it puts a lot of elements of Natsume's Book of Friends in the right place. It's a story made to help people relax, chill, and unwind with its non-conflict, low-stakes storytelling, and fascinatingly enough, it works. It's a little funny, a little sad, plays with this soft horror sometimes, but it never does too much of anything, it never goes overboard. It's not overly sensitive or cheesy, it's just kinda nice. And that's reserved, sort of a soft approach, goes through the every element of the show. For example, the visual style. It's fairly unflashy, but impressive in its own delicate way. I don't know if the show was cheap or not, because it doesn't look expensive. Again, there's no action scenes or anything of that matter, but it does look good. It relies on building an atmosphere and creating the right vibe, on crafting one perfect shot that paired with just the right music hits in the best way possible. It's a show where the culmination of the season, the final episode, it's not just some epic battle or like a huge reveal, like a mind-bending twist that puts entire story on its head. It's just an episode where Takashi and all of his new friends go to a festival together to watch some fireworks. Opening and ending too made in the same calm style and put you in the perfect mood for the upcoming story. Natsume's Book of Friends is a show that, on paper, someone with my sensibilities shouldn't have responded to. I like high stakes, I like violent stories, I like drama, I like conflict, I like storytelling that doesn't care about how it's gonna make you feel, that's just ready to fuck you up. But I cannot not respect the level of control and commitment that the show has. These creators know exactly what they're doing and why, and they just commit to it. Not trying to overshoot to impress someone and not doubting themselves, just fully committing to the creation of a very chill and relaxed show. I admire that. And now, couple of fun things. Creators figured out a way to do a slideshow montage in a unique style that is still cheaper than full animation but doesn't look like absolute fucking dog shit. Digimon makers, learn. Also, it's a full sidetrack, but while watching the show I couldn't stop thinking that this would be a great chill video game, like Stardew Valley or something. And it turns out that this game came out literally a week before I started working on this video. Sadly only in Japanese so far, but cool anyway. And I'm a big fan of Yakuza series, so I popped when Kiryu showed up in the third episode.
Natsume殿、名を返していただきたい。
I mean, he's a Japanese voice actor, so I don't know why I was surprised to hear his voice outside of Kamarucha, but I was. My note says, and I quote, "Fucking hell, random Kiryu voicing one of the spirits." It's all in caps with 3 exclamation points, so I'm pretty sure that at this moment, show kind of failed to help me relax. I think I was kinda excited. And the second pick today is One Piece Strong No. I'm sorry, but no, I'm not doing that. That's not happening. If I watch this film, then probably like with Digimon, I'll just gonna be confused, and to get all the context, I'll have to watch the actual show, and as I said in the first episode, I am not doing that. There's more than 1,000 episodes, that's just ridiculous. It's not happening, so, yeah, I'm not touching that. So I guess, reroll? What did I stumble into? This... This is awesome!
Detroit Metal City DMC.
And the real second anime for today is Detroit Metal City DMC, also known as the most awesome fucking thing created in the history of humankind, based on the manga by Kiminori Wagasuki. This is a story about this timid guy, Soichi Negeshi, who really loves pop music. He loves listening, making and performing it. So he decides to chase his dreams and move from his small town to Tokyo, where he can become a famous musician, write songs, have concerts, sign label deals and be beloved by many fans. And all of that happens. He becomes a frontman of a small band that astronomically rises in popularity. His dreams come true. There's one caveat though, there's one catch. This band called Detroit Metal City, and as you can guess from the name, they don't play pop music. They play death metal. So it's a comedy show, sort of a parody of those stories where kids rebel against their parents and outdated societal norms through artistic expression, with addition of conversation about art versus commerce and stuff like that. Of course, the twist and the joke being that Soichi doesn't actually want to rebel against anything. He likes the most corporate, cookie-cutter type of music, and death metal for him is just a gig for money. It's a thing that he doesn't listen to, understands, or likes even a little bit. This crazy counterculture madness where he's on stage singing about killing and raping his parents while beating the shit out of this masochistic guy is just an opportunity to pay bills. So in his free time he can go and play his songs about eating sweets with his girlfriend or whatever the fuck. And, you know, it's a funny premise. So Detroit Metal City is effectively just a sitcom where our main character has to manage his two lives, you know, his regular day-to-day stuff and like a musician persona. So it's kind of like Hannah Montana, I guess. You know, like in Hannah Montana, she has to manage the high school shenanigans and going out with the boys, with her like being the super famous pop star. And Soichi has to balance his personal life with eating bats and threatening to rape every woman he sees. This show has a very extreme style of comedy, if you hadn't guessed yet. By the most part, it's not very subtle.
じゃあなんかフランス語喋ってみてください。
But it doesn't mean it's unfunny. At very least, it's amusing. I think anyone would acknowledge that. But it pretty regularly made me smile, or sometimes even laugh.
これはシドビシャス。鼻水が。
Even though I still would describe it as a sitcom, often it functions as more of a sketch show with like a loose narrative framing. Majority of episodes are split in two short stories where we introduce to a little scenario with the joke at the end being Soichi doing something crazy. And that could be an issue, right? It's a comedy that has one type of punchline. It becomes quite predictable after a while. But what saves it is the runtime. Every episode is just 13 minutes long, with full opening and full ending. The opening is really cool, by the way. So the actual story in each episode is just about like 10 minutes. The show is less like death metal and more like a punk track. It comes in really hard, it goes really hard, and it leaves before it bored you even a little bit. What also helps is the presentation. It has a very atypical and cool style. I assume most anime, while adapting manga, look at the source material at least for an inspiration, sometimes even attempting to bring those images to TV screens with minimal changes. When Detroit Metal City just takes actual panels, animates them and sticks them into the show. And it works, it looks fun. It definitely wouldn't work for every show, but DMC has such an audacious subject matter that it's only fitting that they also fuck with delivery of their story. So yeah, that's Detroit Metal City. Genuinely a really fun show. Definitely not for everyone, but you know, if it's not for you, it probably just means that you have a very boring taste, and, nobody wants to be your friend or know your opinion, so you don't have to express it. You can keep it to yourself. No one cares. So shut the fuck up and fuck off. Because DMC is actually a really cool show, and in addition to all the craziness and off-the-wall storytelling approach, I also really appreciate that it still managed to have a point and sort of a message. As I said, most of the episodes end with Seiichi doing something nuts. Sometimes he's forced into it, but most of the time he just kinda loses it and goes into this crazy mode, kinda just blacks out, and his death metal persona fully takes over. Obviously, it's funny that this sweet and shy and nice boy has this raging fire inside of him, but I also see it as sort of a commentary that people just need some kind of outlet to unwind. Sometimes it can be yashikai manga or anime, and sometimes it can be death metal, because without it you run the risk of becoming this little freak that in 1 minute sings lovey-dovey songs and in the next one literally spits in the face of the girl he likes. So, this show's pretty deep. Kinda. I mean, not really, but if you want it, it can be. Talking about people that would really benefit from chilling out a little, our last pick for tonight is Marvel Avengers Confidential, Black Widow, and Punisher. Yeah, that's a thing that exists, evidently. When I rolled for a random anime and this showed up, I was I was really shocked, because this is the show where I have no knowledge on the things that I'm covering, and this time I might just have too much knowledge, because, as I said in the first episode, I love comics. Big 2, indie stuff, now also manga. I read it all most of my life. I love the medium. And like with many other kids of my generation, my first exposure to the comics, especially Big 2, Marvel and DC, happened through cartoons. There's obviously 90s stuff, but I also watched some things that came out later. Countless Spider-Man shows, some Avengers stuff, and I remember the moment when I saw Wolverine cartoon. I never fully watched it. I think I only saw the beginning, never finished it, don't know why, don't remember, but it turns out that that cartoon was the part of the entire line. In 2010, Marvel partnered with Japanese anime production studio Madhouse, and together they made bunch of projects like Iron Man show and feature-length film, shows about Wolverine, X-Men, Blade, and their final work, this animated film about Black Widow and Punisher. In the second episode of this show, I said that I am not really into escapist media and I love like grounded stuff and especially crime stories, so Punisher is really my guy. He's always been. I love comics about him. I know it might be somewhat controversial of an opinion, but I don't really care. I like what I like, and it is what it is. I don't care how some weirdos use the symbol and choose to interpret it. I like the comics, and I find Frank endlessly fascinating. And I acknowledge that he doesn't really fit into the Marvel universe. He doesn't really have a place for himself there, just by the nature of what type of character Punisher is. But that kinda what makes me like him even more, because he's just such a misfit, such an anomaly. He was created as a villain. He's an absolute psycho, and on paper he shouldn't work. But not only he does work, he's also one of Marvel's most recognizable characters, with multiple adaptations in other mediums, which is crazy. Like, he's in the same universe with Spider-Man, Squirrel Girl, and Jeff the Land Shark. And each time you see them on the screen or on the page, just keep in mind that in the other part of this universe, this psycho war vet with PTSD just shot someone in the face. And that's canon. And I love it. And Black Widow is fine, right? She's not one of my favorites, but I don't have an issue with her. She's fine. So this film, obviously based on characters and stories created by many talented people who were all working for Marvel and were never properly compensated for their work. Comics will break your heart, according to Jack Kirby. Don't know anything about that, but they will definitely kick you in the balls once or twice. This film doesn't adapt any specific comics though, it's just generally inspired by these two characters. So the most notable creators that matter for this film are Jerry Conway, Ross Andru, and John Romita Sr. with Punisher, and Stan Lee, Don Rico, and Don Heck with Black Widow. And in case some of you were wondering if any of those creators were properly credited in this film, then they're not. People that are credited: obviously everyone who worked on the Madhouse side of production, and Marjorie Liu has a story by credit. And if you, like me, think, who the hell is Marjorie Liu? Well, she's a New York Times bestselling author. Apparently. I never heard of her though. And she did wrote some comics, most notably several indie things, like a series called Monstrous for Image. My first time hearing about it, but it hit 60 issues, which in this comics climate, fucking impressive, so props for that. And she did some Marvel work, nothing significant really. She wrote some X-Men things and a bunch of extended Wolverine family books like X-23. She also wrote a Black Widow 5-issue mini that I haven't read, but it has some good reviews. It was also drawn by Daniel Acuna, so at very least the art is great, that's for sure. And she technically did write some Punisher. She co-wrote a book about Ducken, shitty, annoying son of Logan that no one likes, in which they had a crossover with Punisher. But that was during Rick Remender's run, at the time when Frank was reanimated Frankenstein-esque monster known as Frankencastle. So, her job qualification is that she wrote 5 issues of Black Widow, and technically a version of Punisher was in 2 issues of another book that she co-wrote. Yeah, you know what? After watching this film, honestly, tracks. That sounds just like the perfect amount of credits for the person that came up with this story, because honestly, I am not sure that if anyone who worked on this film have ever read any Marvel comics, and I am absolutely 100% sure that there is not one person that worked on this film that at any point in their life, even from a distance, have seen a Punisher comic. And like, I don't want to concentrate too much on Marjorie, you know, I don't want to bully her or anything, and I don't want this video to become this fucking weird incel rant about like, do not fucking allow those women write my stories about my favorite characters from comics. Like, I don't really give a shit that much. Also, she's not like an actual writer of the film. Actual writer is a Japanese dude that worked for Madhouse, so I'm pretty sure he haven't seen a lot of Marvel comics growing up, you know, I'd imagine. So a lot of weirdness that this film has, and it has a lot of weirdness, can be easily attributed to that. But Marjorie Liu clearly was hired to break basic story. That's what story by credit implies. Figure out all the main elements, create basic structure, and come up with something that feels right for both of these characters. And, well, I just don't think that she did a good job. So the story starts with Punisher in Seattle. And immediately like, what the fuck Frank's doing in Seattle? Like, he's not from there, he's from New York. I'm not even sure that he ever been to Seattle. Like maybe in some random issue, but nothing immediately comes to mind. So why Seattle? Oh, Marjorie Liu is from Seattle, she grew up there. Right. But you know what? Everything else in the opener is fine, just classic Punisher raiding some gun dealers. The action is a little crazy and over the top, but why not? It's fun. The premise is that these dealers armed smaller gangs in the city, and so Frank is going to put an end to it. First on a local level, and then, so he can eliminate the entire problem altogether, he'll find out who they really work for. But he's rudely interrupted by Black Widow because it turns out that the gun dealers, and more specifically people above them, are also of interest to S.H.I.E.L.D. And in the classic tradition of any team-ups, first our heroes have to fight. But it all stopped before late by Nick Fury, who shows up to arrest Punisher and drops 7 buckets filled with exposition on our heads. It revealed that those gun dealers were working for an evil organization called Leviathan that was formed by evil ex-Russians, and yeah, there's this beautiful nugget of lore that is thrown right at us.
When Russia collapsed, they all went underground and spread across the globe.
What do you mean when Russia collapsed? What happened to it? You're just gonna give us information like that with no context? Or did they mean, like, USSR? Well, that's a different country with a different name, so... I don't know. I guess something happened to Russia in this universe. and Natasha doesn't seem to care, so I guess I'm also not gonna care. So Fury recruits Frank in S.H.I.E.L.D.'s fight against Leviathan, and with Black Widow they sent into Slavinia? Sure, to infiltrate and destroy labs where bad guys produce their futuristic weapons. And once again, what the fuck Punisher has to do with any of this? He's a street vigilante from New York. What about this globe-trotting espionage plot says that it fits someone like Frank? And yes, there's some examples of stories where Nick Fury asks him to perform some Black Ops military shit around the world. Specifically, there's a story in Garth Ennis' Punisher Max run where he sent him to Russia to infiltrate a military base and rescue some people. So there's merits to it, I guess, but Punisher Max set in an alternative universe where there's no other Marvel characters, like no Avengers or anything, just Punisher. So it makes a little bit more sense. On top of that, one of the most ridiculous parts of the film is when Punisher gets mind-controlled by bad guys and in that state kills a bunch of S.H.I.E.L.D. agents. After that, he comes to his senses, gets arrested, put in a cell, and when Widow comes to break him out, to go and finish the job, get rid of Leviathan, she has to convince him because he thinks that he fucked up, dangerous, and deserves to be in prison. Which is such a pile of dog shit, like Frank would never. Stuff like that literally happened in comics. He killed a person while mind-controlled, and the only thing that he did after is also killed all the bad guys that made him do it, to avenge the innocent. He is delusional. He looks at his actions and sees them as the war against crime. And, you know, wars have casualties. And you can think that that's insane, but guess what? He is insane. He's a psychotic mass murderer with PTSD. And in addition to those wonderful qualities, he's also a hypocrite. Frank is a very charming person all around. So no, he wouldn't blame himself. There's literal stories where he gets locked in prison and they all end up with him starting a riot or some shit and dipping the fuck out. Sometimes while also becoming black in the process of doing that. We don't have time to talk about that. What makes this story and their pick of characters for it even weirder is that the film actually tries to provide some sort of commentary on the nature of heroism and ways of approaching justice by pinning Punisher and Black Widow's morals against each other. But that's just fucking stupid. It's a common trope in team-ups with Punisher, but usually he's in a team with Daredevil or Spider-Man, with characters that do not kill. So this type of storytelling makes sense. But Natasha is a fucking assassin. She absolutely killed and sometimes still kills people. It doesn't make sense to put them on the opposite sides in this issue. Both of them are morally gray characters. If anything, should be more sympathetic towards Frank than someone else. So this entire pairing, this team-up, in the context that they presented in, does not work. This story doesn't fit Punisher at all. But it's a fine setup for Black Widow. Secret organizations, espionage, you know, put Hawkeye with her, and it'll work perfectly. But here's a punchline. They also managed to ruin the story for her. Wow. The thing is, when Black Widow and Punisher infiltrate that base, they split, and while Frank fucks around with some irrelevant bullshit, Natasha meets Elias Starr, that in comics also known as Egghead, and he looks like this. But here he looks like this. I mean, that's a creative choice, and good for him. But not only his looks have changed, pretty much everything about him is different now. He's Elias Starr in name only, literally. Here he is sort of an amalgamation of Egghead and comics version of Red Guardian. He was a scientist for S.H.I.E.L.D. and dated Natasha, but it really bothered him that she's a really cool super spy hero and part of the Avengers, and he's just a lab rat. So in an attempt to become worthy of her, he stole a bunch of shit from S.H.I.E.L.D., faked his own death, and started working with Leviathan to develop, in good Marvel tradition, a super soldier serum. He did it, and now bad guys can sell brainwashed super soldiers to the highest bidder, and Elias have superpowers, so he can finally be with Black Widow. So you can see how this film is much more focused on Widow, while Frank is just along for the ride, but it still doesn't fucking work for her. Like, okay, they want to do some commentary on toxic masculinity, right? Like how some men feel insecure when they're in a relationship with like powerful and successful women. Fine, but you see, Natasha is a part of this little club of superheroes with no powers. So him wanting to give himself powers to be on the same level with her is literal fucking nonsense. It would work with Captain Marvel, it would work with She-Hulk, with Scarlet Witch, but not Black Widow. Part of the point with characters like her or Hawkeye or Iron Man is that you don't have to have superpowers to be super, to be special. And Elias was already like a very smart scientist, right? He was a genius, so he was already very much on the same level with her. Like, it's so fucking dumb. And like, it would be fine if she was like, "You stupid fuck, what are you on about? I don't have any powers." But no, she just nods and like, "Yeah, you felt lesser than me, well, duh." This film doesn't function as a Punisher story, it doesn't work as a team-up, and it had a potential to work for Black Widow, but it's not. It was conducted in a lab. Right next to the Super Soldier Serum was this movie that was designed to just perfectly miss every point and every opportunity. Like, not gonna lie, it's kind of impressive just how idiotic it is. And in the rest of the plot, they fight bad guys run away, they track them down again in a new location, because don't forget, it's a globe-throwing adventure, so you gotta trot that globe. And eventually everything ends in Madripoor, where Leviathan tries to sell all of the super soldiers to random cameos of D-list Marvel villains. But they stopped by Punisher, Black Widow, and a couple of other Avengers cameos that decided to help out. Frank stabs the main Leviathan man in the face, even though Fury wanted to arrest him. And I'm sorry, I know that by this point I'm just like beating the dead horse, but why the fuck you send Punisher after someone if you want to have them arrested? Like, don't you know his main thing? So Fury decides to arrest Castle, but Black Widow helps him escape because she's like, "You know what, Frank, we're not so different after all." And I'm like, yeah, no fucking shit. If only you build a story around that. So overall, I didn't like this film a whole lot. If you didn't figure that one out yet, I enjoyed animation, more or less, nothing breathtaking, but really good general level of quality. The one thing I did like a lot is the designs of pretty much all of the characters. They're great. I especially dig Frank's militaristic getup, it looks cool. Fun fact, Hawkeye and Iron Man both voiced by Matt Mercer, for all of you creators out there.
Oh, nice to see you're still as pleasant as you ever were.
And even funner of the fact, the rest of the Avengers that show up in the end, voiced by no one. War Machine, Thor, and Captain Marvel have literally no lines in the film. And you know what? I think it's time for me to shut up too, so let's finish this. If this video helped you relax and unwind, well, that's cool. I'm not gonna lie, that wasn't the point. I didn't even try to do that, but, I'm happy for you, so leave a like for that, I guess. And if it had the opposite effect, and after watching this video you wanna kill someone, then don't. Please? Killing is not cool, and you're gonna suck and gonna be very lame and boring if you do that. So go into the comments and write, "I won't kill anyone, I promise," so I would know for sure. So, I think I did a lot of good, right? I helped some people relax, probably, maybe, there's a chance, and I stopped a possible murder spree. I think I deserve a right to relax myself. In the next video, I won't kill anyone, I promise. Bye!